Hello, welcome to part 7 of the puzzle Pathfinding game. Now, in last part, we've created a cube that we can pick up with our agents. I'll quickly show what it's like. Now, give it a second for the project to start. So now the agent picks it up. We can make the agent drop the object and have another one pick it up. Or we can just use another agent to steal it from the current one after some delay. Now, what we kind of want to do is, on dropping, we want to make the object fall to the ground, and we also want to make some of the agents be inactive on start. So let's duplicate our agents. Let's just say we have two agents that will only become available when we open up the gate, which means complete the first level. So first, let's extend their script to make them inactive, and make specific agents inactive and start. So we'll do this by going into the agent controller. And I'm just going to wait for Visual Studios to load. There we go. First, I'm going to just remove the item held from the held items position, because we no longer need to see it as a serializable field. What we have here, let's just slightly change this code around. So let's add a heading here, and let's call this pickups. I'm actually going to move these two around like this. And our next one is going to be the player active states, like this. And here we are going to store a set of renderers, because we will be changing the color of a player to show if he's active or not. So when he is active, we get the color of blue. So first we will get a private renderer, as renderer is the component that allows us to change materials. And that's going to be an array, because there's several areas that we can color, namely seeing the arms as well as the rest of the body. And we're just going to call this player color render. Just going to set null so it doesn't give us any warnings. Now that we have this, we need to change between two sets of different materials. So let's make a private material and call this the active material. And then make another material, which is going to be our inactive material. And of course, to flick between them as an on and off state, we're going to create a boolean, which we can assign in the inspector, called is active. And we're going to set it to true by default, but we'll be changing it per specific object in the inspector, like so. Now that we have these, let's assign some values. So let's grab any of the prefabs. Actually, let's open up the prefab editor in Unity. So what we want to do is, real quick, attach every single renderer into the renderer field. So let's expand this. Actually, let's lock it first so it doesn't escape us. And now let's look for everything that has the renderer components that we're looking after. So we want to grab that one, and that one. No, and that one. Where are we? And we want to drag it into the renderer area. Now, if we go into our materials folder, we want to assign, well, we have a clothing material. We want to create another material, and then we're just going to change it to inactive clothing. Now, let's drag them all in to the prefab selection. So our inactive one's going to be dragged here, and active is going to be dragged over here at the top. Oh, I actually made it myself. Yeah, it's artistic skills. Okay, with this assigned, let's just change the color from blue to, I guess, black, and that'll do. Now that we go back, all of our prefabs should have that everything connected as they're attached to a prefab, and now we can start programming this. So the color is something we want to assign at the start of the code. So let's first make a new function, and let's call it private void set active state. And what set active state will do is it will check if r is active is equal to true, and of course it will have to do something else if it's not true. So if it is true and we can move it, we loop through every single renderer. We'll use a for loop for that. Dot length to get the entire length of it. And we'll, for every single player renderer, so we'll do player renderer at I, and then we'll change its material to the active material, like so. And then we'll do the opposite if it's inactive. So we'll just put the inactive material here. Where are we? So now if we play, now if we go back to our game and we select the last two units that we have here, and we just untick the is active field on, and we press play. Actually, we didn't assign it and start, did we? And now I double click start. Okay, so now we have to run this function, and we'll of course run it in start like this. I feel like kind of moving this out at some point because it's a bit messy. Okay, so now these guys are in blue, and if we scroll higher, these guys are in black. Of course, right now I can still select them, which is a problem. I actually realized that not all of it is set as a path. So what we want to do now is make it so we can't actually select them if this is the case. And we run our selection in input player controller. So what are we looking at? It's been ages since I had a look at this script. Let's have a look. Oh, that's right. We actually first we need to add the new agent into our list of all agents. I think since we keep adding agents, it's better off to change this script entirely. And instead of having a manual selection of the agents, instead we will just attach, just look for the agents because it's very easy to find them. So what we will do is we'll create a start function, and we will just do all agents is equal to find objects of type, and our type is going to be agent controller dot game object dot transform. No, I guess we can do game object dot find objects with tag instead. So I think all of them have the same tag, which is units, so we'll be using that instead. And now instead of having manually attach every single character via the inspector, it's just going to do it automatically on start function. So now we can select everything without problem. So let's give this a go. Yep, these guys are selected, and so are these. So now let's move on to deselecting process, which will prevent the users from being selected when they're not clicked on. Where are we? So this is where we deselect. Where do we select them? Oh, okay. So this is where we add our selected. So those are the two functions where we add our object. So all we have to do here is if just do a quick if check. So if our selected agent, no, if hit.transform, if hit.transform, and we will have to get this component here. So rather than doing that, we will first assign this hit to something, so we don't have to get the component twice. Because what we essentially have to do here is if the agent controller dot is active, then we add. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create a new variable that only exists temporarily, and we're going to call this the agent controller new agent, and we're going to make it equal to our hit.transform. And that means that we can now change this to agent, and this entire code here can be shortened to new agent as well. And now that we have this, let's go to the agent controller and make it so we can access our active is active bool, but we don't want to set it, we only want to get it, so we'll remove the set field from it, and we'll do if is active. Whoa, wrong place. So if is active, we can add him to our list, otherwise we are not going to add it to the list. Also, that should be a capital I. And we'll be doing the exact same thing in here. So we'll again cast it as a new agent. So I'm just going to copy over from the line above. We are going to change this entire field to, oh, we actually need to slightly change this. So this will be changed to selectable from hit, and then new agent will be removed here. And then with this, now we should not be able to assign ones that have been selected. It's actually easier than you could think, I think. Okay, now with this done, I believe every agent is now, so now, oh, we can still select them. So the selection code also has to be wrapped inside of this statement here. There we go. So let's give this a try. So we can select these guys individually and together. And these guys cannot be selected at all because they're currently inactive, which is exactly what we want. So now let's make them available once we solve the first puzzle. So how do we solve the very first and only puzzle right now? By moving each of the characters into the red areas and turning them green instead. So let's move this guy here. So as soon as we open up the gate, there should be a trigger which will enable these two agents. And that's something we have to do now. So if we go into our play input, we will create into the agent controller, we will create a brand new function, which is going to be public. So it can be accessed from a different class. And what this will do is public void set new active state. So set new active state will take in a boolean of whenever or not it is active, and it will save our local active to our past value, and then we will run our set active state again because we already have code for it. So first we set the activity by passing it through from a different function, and then we run the code that changes the material again to enable them through so we get the visual representation, not just the boolean inside the code. So with this done, let's have a look at the script that manages the little gate here. And I believe that's in a puzzle script. So if we look at puzzle, we want to expand on how the puzzle system works by, where are we? So when our puzzle gets completed, we need to reward the player. So let's create a function called private void enable players after completion. And we're going to run this right before we disable the game. since this all will probably happen on the same frame, you're never going to see the difference between these two happening one by another. And now we're going to create a list. So it's going to be a private list, and it's going to be of type agent controller. And this is going to be the new agents to control. And we're just going to set up the list straight away. The reason why no, actually we can keep it as an array. Instead, there is no need to make it a list because we will never add to it at any point besides from the inspector. And what's going to happen is when we do this, let's actually move this function slightly higher. And so enables agents when puzzle is completed, like so. And what we'll do is we will loop through every single agent in our loop. So for dot length, that means that if there is no agents, it's just going to do nothing, which is great, because not always we will reward the player with puzzle completion. So what we're going to do is for each agent, we will do new agents, and we want to grab each specific one from the list. And then we want to run the function that we just create. So sets agents to active or inactive state based on the value received, like so. And we want to run set new active states, and we want to pass in true because we want them to be enabled, like so. So let's close this up, press play, complete the puzzle, and see what's going to happen. So let's select the first, second, push the camera up a little bit. Oh, this guy overshot. And we have an error. So our agents never got enabled, which is a problem. Oh, it's not. We didn't actually assign the agent into the inspector. That's why they didn't get enabled. Where are we? Like this. Now it should work fine. Okay, you there, you there, you straight ahead. There you go. And as we see now these agents are enabled. And before, when we started, they were disabled. So with this, we have the reward per puzzle complete. So that means that we can keep creating more and more puzzles. Another thing that I want to add is, so one idea for a puzzle I will have is where you'll pick up the movable object and you'll drop it down from the floor and it will fall onto a platform, right? In order to do this, we need to slightly change how the cube works. Namely speaking, we need to add a rigid body to it. So let's add a rigid body to it. Let's enable gravity and press play and see what will actually happen to our object. It's going to fall through. And that's because our only box collider that's active is set to trigger. So that's why we've created a second box collider in the earlier part, which is not set to trigger. And the second collider is much smaller than the first one. The size might actually need some work, but let's give it a work and see what it's going to do. So now our object hits onto the scene and it doesn't go down, which is great. But how will our agent now function now that we collide with this? See, now, even though we're holding it, it just kind of flies around. And that's because of the rigid body. So what we really want to do is we want to make some changes to this the second collider, and we want to change some rigid body options to our script. So first thing I want to do is open up our item and get that rigid body component reference. So let's create a new private rigid body. And then in start, we just want to get the reference to this component by doing rigid body is equal to get component and of type rigid body, like so. Now with this, we now have connection to the rigid body. We know it's the one we have on this specific object. And what will happen is when we pick it up, we want to basically flip between kinematic and gravity. So I'll quickly show what the difference is between the two. So when it's kinematic, the object stays in midair, but as soon as we flip gravity, it goes down to the floor. So what we want to do is when our object gets picked up, we want it to become kinematic, but as soon as we let go of it, we want the gravity to kick back in so it falls down as we would expect it to. Where are we? Has been picked up true. So as soon as we say has been picked up to true, this is where our object gets picked up. So this is where we change our rigid body. So we'll do here rigid body dot gravity is equal to false, and then rigid body dot kinematic is equal to true. And in the exact same way, we want to do this but reverse in start, and we'll also do this but reverse in on trigger exit. That means that we're going to create a new function which will be called reset rigid body, and we'll just paste these values, reverse them in here, and we want to call this in here at the start, so we set it up correctly, and here at the end when we let go of it. Now let's see if this is going to work. I actually have no idea. Okay, so our object fell, we pick it up, there we go. So it's nicely being held as we would expect it to be. Now we let go of it and it falls to the ground, which is what we want. If anything, I would slightly move the prefab circle. So this slightly stretch it out. So there is more space between where the box is as opposed to us. And now I would like to add a little bit of an incline to the map. So let's click on the platform and just add a plane. Not so big. Where are we? I hope this is going to work, because if not, I'll need to do some changes. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's deattach this plane actually. 1, 1, 1, 1. There we go. Okay, like this. Now let's rotate it so it's less of a steep curve. I guess like this should be fine. Now let's attach this to our platform. And of course, the first thing it does, it changes how it looks. So let's change this. Oh, it is already a walkable. We need to change this to navigation static. Now let's have both of them selected and go into navigation. And let's clear and bake it. So there you go. So now we have this, which is also considered a little walkable area. We might have to play around with it later, but let's see if the concept is going to work out. I'll do some level building off the screen because I don't want to reveal what the puzzles are going to be like. So now we can go up to the edge. Kind of not really edged, is it? And what happened as soon as we let go? Oh, it fell through. So one thing I need to do is add a collision to this. So let's add a little bit of a thicker collision. But either way, the important part is that we can scale, and we will then just change how the object falls. So we might play around with the gravity later on so it doesn't fall as quickly as it does right now. But that's it for today's part. We've managed to create well, we managed to expand on some already existing features. In the next part, I'll be adding more different puzzles. So we'll be working on just further adding puzzles and puzzles so we can fill up this entire path. And that's it for today.